Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the Ruckus and The Menace podcast. I am Ruckus,
And I'm Spence Menace.
and tonight, or whatever time you find suitable to listen to our outstanding sports and sports video games and other stuff podcast, um, tonight we have something special for you. We have some football that we're going to discuss. Obviously, last week we did the NFC, and this week we're going to do the AFC, but we're also going to do some other stuff too. But anyways, what have you been up to, Spinnis?
Well, I would say the biggest thing after all of the moving around that was going on the week before, it's mostly been just setting some of the early framework, like getting things booked as far as wedding planning goes. And kind of just taking things a little bit, like kind of just having this be a little bit of a slower week, and we're finally caught. And my fiance and I are finally caught up on She-Hulk up to tomorrow's episode. And I actually finished watching the Tekken Bloodline series or little anime on Netflix. That minus the acting, like everything visually was great. And we get Disney Plus Day tomorrow, so I'm sure there's going to be a lot of announcements, a lot of different things that are coming along the way. So who knows what all else is going to be on. And tomorrow we get football.
Yep, and I'm excited to finally watch the most hyped game that has been talked about for a couple weeks now with the Buffalo Bills and the LA Rams. I'm excited to see
Yeah,
what happens with that. I really want to see Josh Allen ball out against the Rams. I feel like it's going to be a shootout, but who knows? We'll have to see. Um,
yeah,
are
that
you
is
still
true.
going or?
Oh yeah, I'm still going. Uh, I kind of like wrapped up. I mean, you can kind of like pick up where you were leaving off because I'm sure you've got like a few just simple little things before
Yeah.
we get right into it.
All right. So pretty much what I did last weekend was and last week was just either work or play video games. But I been watching some somewhat older movies that I haven't really seen. I watched Beer League, which is a with Ralphie Macchiano, I believe, from or not Macchiano, the kid from A Karate Kid.
Oh, Ralph Macchio, yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't know
Ralph
if I was
Macchio.
saying the right name. That's why I like kind
Basically,
of.
Daniel. Oh yeah, and Cobra Kai starts. Cobra Kai season 5 is this week too. Man, there's a lot going on. It's like I got
Yeah.
2K coming out. I got Cobra Kai Cobra Kai coming out. Man, this is a crazy week.
Yeah, and I watched Beer League, which was a very interesting one. It's pretty hilarious. Not much related to like actually baseball. It's more just comedy and people getting at each other's throats and ripping on each other. And then I watched a couple other movies like Machete with Danny Trejo and Jessica Alba. I Last night I watched the Jordan Peele movie Nope, and I didn't know what to expect coming from it because I didn't really watch the trailer for it. But whatever I watched for like the teaser, I wasn't like odd about or like really interested to the point where I would go and see it at launch night. But I watched it and I thought it was a fairly surprisingly good movie. If you are a person that likes Western kind of action slash just the mystery of all things and figuring out what certain people have done, you would probably enjoy it. Other than that, I pretty much just watched a bunch of movies and TV shows. I got King of the Hill on my Plex server, and I've been watching that and Futurama. So, and then the second week of the season 2 pass for Battlefield has been kind of a slow burn for me since the new map I'm not really fond of when it comes to my favorite mode breakthrough where if you're the defenders on like the very last leg of defending, I think it's like capture point C or D, you are very limited and the space that you have is like very wide open. So I'm just kind of like trying to cut off those areas that the enemy is trying to like capture, but it's very hard to do that when the barrier is like right close to where you want to go. Because if you are like if you are in an area that you're not supposed to be for a certain amount of time, the game eventually like kills you off the gate and terminates you. But yeah, that modded Madden is still a lot of fun. Um, MLB The Show I played a little bit of March to October with the New York Mets, and then I finished that, and now I'm on the Kansas City Royals, and also ready for some Chiefs football.
Yep.
And speaking of
That's
things to, of like sports and whatnot, I'll hand it off to Spennis for the weekly lineup.
all right. So here we go. My Red Sox decide to extend Enrique Kike Hernandez for another year. 1 year, 10 million. I mean, earned earned it. It's a utility player, and it puts another player kind of in our roster leading up to the next year.
It's a
Um,
stupid cheap contract.
I mean, for what he brings to the table, yeah, it's an inexpensive contract. But Heim Bloom has mostly been about keeping the money and the payroll for Boston down.
Right. That's why I was saying it was stupid cheap for what it was.
Yep. The Steelers have named Mitchell Trubisky the starting quarterback. How long do we give it before Kenny Pickett takes over?
How long was Josh Fields in like day one?
You mean Justin Fields?
Yes.
I'm not. I
There
can't
needs to be a
remember if Justin.
counter for how many times I say his name wrong.
I can't. I'm not sure how long it took Fields.
I feel like it was day. Well, actually, no, because he had Andy Dalton, and then Andy Dalton got hurt, and then it was Justin Fields.
Yeah. So so are we thinking that Mitchell Trubisky is going to get hurt, or Mitchell
Well,
Trubisky is going to try and play himself out of it?
I think it's more of a matter of uh, just how things go. I don't. Mitchell Trubisky really isn't injury prone. He just was in the wrong place at the wrong time when it comes to the talent that you had in Chicago and also the staff that you had coaching. Because you had that same dilemma with Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns back like 2 years ago. He had like three different coaches and then managed to get to the division rule playoffs for the first time in a while for the Browns. Um, but anywho, back to the Steelers. I think Mitchell Trubisky, with the coach he has, which has a pretty good track record, and a good team that has been there before, they still have their defense and most of their offense. Deontay Johnson is questionable for this week, but I think with the talent they have, it doesn't matter who you have out there. I think you'll be fine. I think they're going to go as long as they can, and hopefully it doesn't turn into something that happened last year with the Carolina Panthers with Sam Darnold.
Yep. And then the next thing is that Emmanuel Sanders has announced his retirement. Very, very well deserved, as Sanders did win a Super Bowl ring with Peyton Manning, had a couple of Super Bowl appearances. I
Including
mean,
one with
big,
the 49ers against the
yeah, it
Chiefs.
was a big career too. Like, it's a big career too for Emmanuel for Sanders. I mean, probably not a Hall of Fame career,
Oh,
but
that's definitely
he
a Hall of Fame career.
it may be. But I know that receivers do have an infamous reputation of having to wait a little bit. And Dawson Knox got a 4-year extension. So that shores up Josh Allen for the time being at tight end.
That's both show.
And now the next thing we have is a blockbuster deal. The block has been busted again in the NBA as Donovan Mitchell is now going to the Cleveland Cavaliers in a trade with the Utah Jazz, sending Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, along with another player, 3 unprotected picks, and 2 pick swaps. The unprotected picks and pick swaps alternate years starting in 2025.
By the way, that other player to me that was in that 3-player deal with the picks and the pick swaps was KU basketball's Ajabai, I believe. I don't know his first name, but yeah, he was a they won the March Madness tournament in the
A
NCAA
rookie? Is
men's.
he a rookie this year?
Yep, he got drafted to the Cavs and now is a Utah Jazz basketball player. Exciting stuff though.
Yep. And Pujols home run 700 watch. Um, he hit number 695 on Sunday against the Cubs. Aaron Judge just cranked out number 55 as far as his chasing Maris.
He's on the juice, son.
Who, Judge?
I
He's
mean,
always been that. Judge has always, both of them have always been that big. But Judge has just been hitting the ball that much better this season. It is unreal that Judge has got 55 home runs and he's got to get 5 just to even catch 60. And in an era where the ball does fly a little bit more because pitchers are throwing it harder, but hitters are also striking out more. For him to even be at 55 right now is impressive.
yep. Once you remove the spider tack, it makes it easier for the ball to fly out of the yard instead of into the catcher's glove.
And we have the MLB playoff pictures coming up. Of course, the Yankees are 4.5 up on the Rays, so they look like to be the winners of the AL East coming up within the next stretch of games. I mean, there's over like 20 left, but
So who are the main 2 wild card guys in the AL? You would say.
well, the wild card you have the Rays and the Mariners. The Baltimore Orioles are now starting to fade. They are 4 games back
What
of
about the Blue
Toronto.
Jays? You said,
Toronto's got the 3rd spot.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so the Orioles are starting to fade.
Wait, so are there four teams now in the wild card, or is it just
No,
3?
there's 3, but the
Okay,
Orioles are 4 games out from that 3rd and final spot.
I gotcha now.
But the Orioles overall are only 6 games from the first wild card spot. So I mean, but they're starting to the trajectory is starting to slowly dip. And then the fun part, the Atlanta Braves have now tied. Well, they were tied as of earlier this week, but the Braves are a half game behind the Mets in the division lead. But that was more so also because I think the Braves also had a day off somewhere in there. So the Braves do have one more game to play than the Mets do. So the Braves currently are leading the wild card, but the Mets are right there like going like back and forth with them. And there are right now only 2 teams that are technically mathematically eliminated right now.
For the Nationals and
Obviously, the Oakland Athletics.
damn, I
But
was hoping it would be the Reds would be one
no,
first.
The Reds are at 20 games. The Reds are at 20 games. I mean, granted that their chances are fleeting. Like you're going to see more teams kind of as games wind down that it fleets even more. But you got really the four main contenders in the NL wild card. You have the Braves or Mets, whichever one does not win the division. The Phillies, the Padres, and the Brewers. Once it goes from there, it starts tapering off even further. Once you're getting into that 9 games out range at that point. Meanwhile, in the AL, it's like, yeah, you get the Rays, Mariners, and Blue Jays. But the Orioles are the closest team hanging on, like the Brewers. But then their fade off starts to kind of have a little bit of smaller numbers. The Twins, the White Sox, Boston still hanging, trying to barely hang on at 10 games out. So basically, at this point, anybody who has really, I'm going to say the ones that are fading are anywhere between 7 and 10 games out. And the ones that I think are now kind of like, there's little to no shot, or anybody with like 15 or more games out at this point. So starting from the Angels down in the AL and the Rockies down in the NL. But Arizona and San Francisco are kind of fading away. So we've got a lot of prominent and great baseball coming up within the next few weeks. That could do a lot of shifting
For sure.
throughout the. Yep. We ready for the main event?
Oh yeah.
All
Or should
right.
I say,
So,
"Aw yeah," like the cop from Futurama?
or we go like Macho Man Randy Savage. Let's go. Ooh yeah.
Oh yeah. Do you have the Macho Slim Jim? Because my father, at one point, like when he went to, like I think it was like Wyoming or someplace, he bought one of those like Macho Man Mega Sticks or whatever, and he showed it to me, and I was like, "That's pretty macho."
Oh yeah. All right. So last week we took over running the preview of the NFC, and this week is the AFC. We're gonna start with the North, and these teams are Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Cleveland, and Cincinnati, with the Steelers, Ravens, Browns, and Bengals. The most significant offseason move outside of the NFL draft for the AFC North.
I picked the Browns trade for Deshaun. Give me a massage, Watson.
Yeah, I think that one was probably the one that generated the most headlines, just simply because of everything that this season kind of just brought into a straight magnitude over. I went outside of that and I went toward the Steelers camp. And I said the retirement of Big Ben. And this kind of leads to a major quarterback shift in Pittsburgh that hasn't been prominently in place since 2004. So Big Ben was a franchise quarterback for Pittsburgh in a long time. Everything now shifts there in Steeler Nation. You've got Trubisky, you've got Pickett, had a quarterback battle. Trubisky won out to start the season, but very well, Kenny Pickett could make a little noise here. And the impact rookie, we both chose Steelers.
But not for the reasons you would have picked. So I have the wide receiver out of, I believe it was Georgia, George Pickens.
George Pickens.
Yeah, I believe he was at Georgia. For some reason, my first thought was Ohio State, but I think it was Georgia. But yes, the rookie wide receiver out of the Pittsburgh
Yeah,
Steelers.
yeah, it's Georgia. Yeah, you're right. Georgia Bulldog. And then I actually took I took Kenny Pickett because with with Trubisky winning the starting job, Pickett what Pickett does is that Pickett still being waiting in the wings kind of puts a little bit of pressure on, especially if he performs well in practice. It still gives competition to Trubisky as the quarterback. That if if things go left in Pittsburgh, I wouldn't be surprised if 2/3 of the way down the line in the season that Kenny Pickett takes some reps, and eventually works his way to becoming the starter.
I
Okay,
have a
so
feeling it could be a situation of like the Patrick Mahomes deal, like when Alex Smith was there for like a couple of years, and then whenever they traded or not traded, whenever they drafted Patrick Mahomes, they had Mahomes under Smith's realm for like a year. Maybe that's what
for one,
happens.
yeah, it was one season, and then they trade, and then Mr. Smith went to Washington and in a trade. But
He,
interesting enough that trade went full circle as far as one major player a couple years later in Kendall Fuller coming back to DC. That was a full circle trade as Kendall Fuller has only played for two teams in his career.
far out, man.
Yep. But which player, and we both agreed on this one, is in really a put up or shut up situation?
All right. So, in my honest opinion of this player, they have him listed as a quarterback, but I see him more as a running back because most of the time, whenever he gets the ball snapped to him, he's either out of the pocket trying to run for some yardage, or whenever he actually attempts to throw a ball, it's usually like a dropped pass, or somehow, some way, Hollywood Brown snags it. But he doesn't have Hollywood Brown anymore. That man has been traded to the Arizona Cardinals. And again, I see Lamar Jackson kind of like how I see Taysom Hill. A guy that is could do everything, but is not a quarterback. So I have him having to put up the numbers to justify a big contract extension with the Baltimore Ravens. Because the Baltimore Ravens deserve better, in my opinion.
For me, I went with the same player, Lamar Jackson, but for a different reason. The game of football has a major shift when the calendar turns to January. So Lamar Jackson, yeah, he could be all fine and dandy and do all his Michael Vick type movements in September through December. But what was the one thing that really faltered Michael Vick as well? The month of January. Vick never had a deep run in the playoffs because running quarterbacks or quarterbacks that can make huge amount of plays with their legs. I know that Joe Burrow is in this realm as well, but Joe Burrow can also make plays with his arm. But it gets real on these quarterbacks to make plays with their arm and getting the ball down the field a bit more in the postseason.
He's also had
So
injury trouble too, so that's partly why I was like, well, I don't know how to feel about him.
yeah, so really I think Lamar Jackson is more so in a put up or shut up situation in terms of a championship in Baltimore, I think that also can benefit him in a contract situation, especially if he continues to play well. But granted, yeah, he has an MVP, and everybody's like, and everybody when I talk about this situation, especially when I talk with Ravens fans about the situation, they're like, "Oh, you're hating on Lamar. Oh, you're hating on Lamar." I'm like, I'm not hating on Lamar. I'm being kind of brutally honest about this and saying that I cannot buy in on Lamar Jackson as a championship quarterback. And his crumblings in January kind of tell us very much why.
Yeah, for sure. Because like he was facing the Titans in his like first playoff game, correct? In 2019 or
No,
2020.
no, he actually had one against the Chargers before that.
Oh, okay.
Then there
Because
was the one where Derrick Henry basically just ran all over him.
I
And
remember that
I
game.
I was talking with another fellow Ravens fan who I went to college with, and I said, I am I have written off Baltimore. Like I have written it off just because I like Derrick Henry is a freight train of a running back.
He's a freaking tank.
Oh, I was going along with the term of freight train, as in he basically just can't. He's very difficult to tackle, and as the game grinds on, you don't want to continue tackling this guy, but you're gonna have to.
Very true.
And I wrote off Baltimore then simply because I didn't think that Lamar could pass well enough offensively to cover the Titans' ability to control the clock. Voila, that happened.
All right. What do you
But
think our breakout player would be?
I went in the Cincinnati offense. And that granted Jamar Chase has already arrived. Tyler Boyd, a good little spot receiver for him. But I'm going to say that I think T. Higgins is going to have a big year for the Cincinnati Bengals.
The
And
man hitting it off the tee.
get this. And I'll even mention this as far as my fantasy football league. I was not thinking T. Higgins was going to get drafted as early as he did in my fantasy football draft. Somebody drafted him in the third round. A third round pick on T. Higgins. And I looked at that, I'm like, out of all the receivers that you left on this board, because I will even mention this later, that I had my guy fall to me in the fifth round because somebody just in a strange move decided to reach and grab T. Higgins. But I think T. Higgins is gonna have a big year, but not so big of a year that it would cause that big of a reach.
Yeah, for sure. My breakout player, I had another running back in J.K. Dobbins of the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, just simply coming back from injury, and he's back healthy again and hopeful for a big year. That,
Yep.
but we both kind of easily went in a very simple direction in terms of our division winner. We both have taken the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yes, sir.
But we've also considered the potential for playoff teams in this division a rather open competition. Because who knows what the Browns are going to be able to do with players like Jacoby Brissett, or and Jacoby Brissett, I think, notably being an example of this, or
They're
the
honestly
Steelers and
just
how they're.
They're honestly
and
just
how the
polishing a turd at this point.
well, well, I know that somehow they would end up going through that and trying to figure out a way to take take themselves to the Super Bowl. But unfortunately, I I would think that their chances later on down the line will get flushed down.
Yeah, and really anybody can take the Browns to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, you kind of caught where I was going at, literally. You kind of caught on to where I was going with that.
Flush. A royal flush.
Yep. Let's move on to the AFC South.
I
The Indianapolis Colts, the Tennessee Titans, the Houston Texans, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are the four teams that we're going to be focusing on. The most significant offseason move in the AFC South is
picked the Colts trading for Matty Ice Ryan from the Atlanta Falcons to replace Carson Wentz,
who went
which
to
was
the Commanders.
yes. And for you, Spennis?
I took a I took an interesting take on this. I did not go with a trade in. I went with the Jaguars free agency period and the spending spree that they took or that they had themselves in spending for wide receiver Christian Kirk, tight end Evan Ingram, and guard and former commander Brandon Scherf.
Are you
So,
sure about this?
oh, we don't have to. And I kind of remember that I told you in free agency when all this was going on, and I said that I really think that the commander that Washington was going to let Sheriff walk and not and they weren't going to pay him. This is exactly what happened. And I knew it was going to happen because the same situation happened to Kirk Cousins, and I'm sure it's probably happened in a couple of other situations, but not like this. That we offered what we could for Sheriff, and he just kept turning it down. The impact rookie in this division,
I have Damian Pierce
who has
of
just been named the starting running back in Houston,
mm-hmm.
and I will admit I was looking at him kind of course had my draft earlier today. I was kind of looking at him at like a different point in this draft that I got. I think I got sniped from him at some point. I think I was looking at him somewhere. Yeah, like round 10. Round 10, I was looking Damian Pierce and maybe even a CEH. And then J.K. Dobbins went before me, and I took Chase Edmonds. But Damian Pierce is actually going to be. I think he'll be a solid rookie in Houston. It just all depends on how well that offense actually will work. But I took a defensive player, and I'm going Devin Lloyd of the Jaguars. A player in a put up or shut up situation.
All right. I had Matt Ryan of the Indianapolis Colts as my put up because so far in his career he's been to one
As
Super Bowl and it was the 28-3 uh, curse that still haunts the Atlanta Falcons to this day, and I think
I
that
don't blame him. I don't blame him. Like I can't blame Matt Ryan for that one.
but also here's the deal. Matt Ryan has not put up the numbers ever since then, and for the Colts to put make the risk of having him be their main quarterback, I want to see better numbers than what I saw the past 4 or 5 years. Let's be frank here. He hasn't been good. He has been a sack magnet for the past couple of years, and I want him to like flourish, kind of like how Matthew Stafford did whenever he got traded from the Lions to the Rams. I'm not gonna say it's as significant, but Matt Ryan will have more resources at his disposal and running backs at his disposal to help him succeed, and a coach to help him succeed.
Yeah, with Frank Reich, yeah, that could be something. I
Yes.
I went in a little bit of a different direction with this put up or shut up situation. I went to Tennessee, and I am taking that Ryan Tannehill is in a put up or shut up year. Now, hear me out. This is more so because of where Tennessee ended up going in their draft when it eventually fell to them in taking Malik Willis when they did. Tannehill has gone on saying that he is not going to mentor Malik Willis and in any shape or capacity, as this was more competition. If you're going to do that, you better put up what you can, or this is going to force you to the bench. Malik Willis is going to take over. The Titans probably then could pull a little more read option at this point and have Malik Willis do some things that are a little different than what is normal for a Titans offense, depending on what Mike Vrabel decides to bring to the table. But I'm going,
As sorry,
but along with this, Tannehill Tannehill's got to kind of back up some claims that he was going through right around minicamp of with Malik Willis coming in.
oh, I was just gonna do the. I was just gonna say, Tannehill better do what the hood, or not the hood, the Who says, and say, "You better, you better, you bet." Uh, I don't remember the lyrics to that, but I just remember the "You better, you better, you bet." You better put up. You better, you better, you bet. And now we get a DMCA strike. Sorry,
Huh.
YouTube.
Gee, thanks.
I sung it too well. Okay, I'm just too gifted.
Yeah. So, which player do you think is going to break out?
I think the Jaguars quarterback that was drafted last year from the Clemson Tigers. Go. Wait, not same one.
That would be LSU.
I was thinking to Coach O that whole time. Breakout player for
No,
me is Trevor Lawrence of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think with the right guidance with Doug Peterson as his head coach, I think he will do much better than he did with the co-ed Dragon Urban Meyer. Sorry, did you say co-ed? As Urban Meyer would ask.
I actually am going with an Indianapolis Colt here. I'm taking Michael Pittman. Well, granted, a junior because his father was a former Tampa Bay Buccaneers running back, but I'm gonna go with Michael Pittman Jr. of the Indianapolis Colts to be the breakout player for me, simply because number one, I drafted him as a fourth round pick, so that made an incredible amount of sense in terms of that side of it and why I chose him. But then to go along with it, Pittman's going to have Matt Ryan throwing in the ball. There's no T.Y. Hilton, so he's now the guy. And Pittman should be able to get some things done. And we both kind of took a very very simple approach in who was going to win the AFC South, and we both said the
The
Tennessee
T
Titans.
Titans. Oh yeah.
But we also said the potential for playoff competition is the Indianapolis Colts.
If only the sheriff was there to help them.
Now we move to the AFC East. The New England Patriots, Miami Dolphins, Buffalo Bills, and New York Jets. I'm sure you had a big reason for this move that you had for the most significant offseason move, excluding the draft in the AFC East, as it ties to your old team.
Man, the day that this happened, I was very upset because this man was a pivotal part of our offense for like the past 5 years. Even though he was dealing with some personal stuff off the field. Yes, I'm talking to you, Tyreek Hill. The man that will not shut up about Patrick Mahomes after being added to the Miami Dolphins from a trade that gave us a couple draft picks, first rounder, or I think it was like two first rounders and like a second. Um, Tyreek Hill being traded to the Miami Dolphins to bust his ACL and never play football again. Just kidding. Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins. Sorry, I'm a little salty about that still.
And then I have Raheem Mostert reuniting with former 49ers offensive coordinator Michael McDaniel. And as a coach, as a player coach relationship, because McDaniel was the run game coordinator in San Francisco from 2017 to 2020, got promoted to offensive coordinator in San Fran, and has now become a head coach in Miami. A major player who kind of benefited from that time there. Granted, Elijah Mitchell benefited last year, but Raheem Mostert. So it's significant in terms of Raheem Mostert is staying with the coach that has helped him really develop a successful career. The impact rookies we both chose in this division both came from the New York Jets and on two different sides of the ball.
That is for sure. I picked the running back Brees Hall out of Wichita, Kansas.
And I went with the guy who did not allow a touchdown in college and was not targeted at any point in the preseason. So no QBs were coming at him in the preseason. We could have a potential very much like a Darrelle Revis type situation with a lot of upside. And it's all about the sauce. Sauce Gardner, that is. And I think that he is going to be a contender for defensive rookie of the year if he can not only keep this shutdown type of state, but then also compile it also with a couple of interceptions and maybe even a pick six somewhere in there. I think he's a contender. I think he's a contender for defensive rookie of the year.
I hope that he just stays healthy and has nothing bad happen to him. Because when it comes to like the New York teams, especially, it seems like they get injured a lot. But I feel like that's also be. Go ahead.
That stadium at MetLife is not necessarily very conducive for a lot of. I would say FedEx Field is worse for the health, but MetLife, that field gets chewed up not by one team, but two teams.
Would you say the same about Heinz Field, now as also known as Azurshire Field?
Acrisure Stadium?
Worcestershire Field?
Oh my goodness. that was terrible. That was terrible. That was terrible.
That was terrible, Ernie.
Pitt doesn't even play their games primarily there. They were just playing that one as like that was so big of a game that their regular football stadium was not going to hold that. All right,
Anywho,
so the play so we both took two different angles as far as our put up or shut up situation. You you and your jadedness for Tyreek Hill have already said enough.
honestly, I want him to just put his money where his mouth is, literally and
Yeah.
figuratively, and I think he needs to show that and quit hyping up his podcast as much as he is right now and just focus on football mainly. I'm talking to you, Tyreek. Jerk. Anyways, what was your put up or shut up?
But I don't think the cheetah is going to be able to do any of that without having a competent and effective person throwing the ball to him. And yes, I have taken Tua Tagovailoa, or some people had said Tua turned the ball over, and in Miami, they
Yeah,
tanked.
this man
They
isn't
tanked
Dwayne the Rock
for
Johnson
this.
from Moana.
They they tanked for this guy. For what reason? Like, why?
All they can
If
say
he
is you're
really is
welcome.
not, if he's not good enough to be the starting quarterback, you have a draft next season that is potential to be loaded with a quarterback class. If not this one, at least there's one within the next couple of years that is going to be stocked full of quarterbacks that they could get to. And this is just in case the Tua situation does not work out. And you need a different arm to be able to get the ball to the cheetah.
By the way, I was gonna say earlier that Tua is no Maui when it comes to arm strength. Just saying. Maui is a character from Moana. Just so you know.
I knew where you were going with that. We just I was trying to breeze past all of the Samoan jokes that you were trying to make there. I was I was seriously trying to breeze past them. Oh, and then the breakout players, we both chose Patriots. So we went impact rookies. We were able to go straight into the Jets. Put up or shut up situations were in Miami. It's like we've broken down each team individually.
Kind of suspicious. Um, I picked my breakout player to be the quarterback from Alabama that got drafted last year to the New England Patriots, Mac Jones. I think he'll shine a lot more than what he did last season, and last season he had a pretty good year. Just didn't pan out the way he wanted, but hey, same happened with Pat Mahomes.
I went with due to some running back injuries that have gone on in New England. Next man up. That's kind of been a Belichick trademark. I'm going with Ramondre Stevenson as my breakout player because he's not a first year player in this league, but it's kind of the first year that we've really known of his existence. But with even with all this other stuff aside, what's weird about every single one of these divisions is that we both came to a consensus on who we were taking winning the division.
I mean, didn't we already do that with the Bengals though?
Well, we did that with the Bengals, we did that with the Titans, and it remains the same here. The Buffalo Bills.
True, true. I just wasn't paying attention fully. I was just kind of, you know. Anyways, I picked the Buffalo Bills mainly because Josh Allen has shown that he can walk the walk and talk the talk, even though he doesn't really talk the talk, but he just walks the walk, which is good because the man can sling the damn ball. And when you don't have a defense like the Chiefs did for the divisional game in the playoffs, we should have lost that game, to be
And
honest.
he runs like a power back, and he runs like a power back too.
Dude, he runs like if Derrick Henry had leg strength to jump over people. Like if if Josh Allen was a running back, just strictly that, he would be much better than Derrick Henry, just based on the fact that he can just pile drive through people and just jump over them. Derrick Henry, all he knows is just running, but I don't really see him jumping. It's more just his feet stay on the ground, and if they're not on the
Oh,
ground, they're moving rapidly, but they're not
and he has an
jumping.
incredible and Henry's signature thing is his stiff arm.
Right. Again, that's what I'm saying. Like he just doesn't do many flashy juke moves. Yes, he could probably spin around or whatever, but yeah, he's gonna hit you with his stiff arm and get you out of his way, but he's less likely to jump over you if you try to like do one of those impact tackles where like almost makes you fumble the ball and drop it.
But then we also said that the Patriots also have the potential to be a playoff team in this division. And now
Yes,
we
sir.
come to your main event, the best division in football,
The AFC West,
the AFC
baby.
West. And the reason why that I say that the AFC West is right now the best division in football is that these are the four teams that this competition will spend so much time beating each other up, just like the AFC North, but they will spend so much time beating each other up that this one is open, and all of these teams I think will finish with winning records, hopefully. They're going to see a lot of season series splits. But the most significant offseason move in this division.
I have Devontae Adams going to the Raiders in a trade with Green Bay because it's one of the better wide receiver pieces that Derek Carr is going to overthrow, but it's also one of the pieces that Derek Carr actually knows. So it's probably going to be harder for him to overthrow it to his wide receiver and get intercepted by a Chiefs player. But here we go.
I went with this guy here. Broncos country. Let's ride.
Let's ride.
And I am saying that Russell Wilson to Denver is going to be a major impact, as this gives them a secure option at quarterback. And I think it's going to be a move that will impact the Broncos in a positive manner, more so than very much of the other moves that have gone on. And Russell Wilson wanted out of Seattle. They ended up choosing a reasonable place.
He wanted to be a mile high from Seattle. It's funny because both of those states are legalized. But
Legal
anyway,
marijuana states. Yep. All right. But our impact rookies, we both went with Chiefs.
we went with the Chiefs. All right. So my pick for the impact rookie for the Kansas City Chiefs, I picked the rookie that was picked in the 7th round from the Houston Rutgers, and that man, the myth, the legend, a running back in the making, Isaiah Pacheco. The man can run. He still has a lot to learn, but I'm telling you, man, this guy is going to be a beast. He's going to be a steal. They're going to be talking about him all the time. And he wears the same number as Tyreek Hill, but who gives a damn? I think he is going to do above and beyond better than what Tyreek Hill could have ever done. Yes, he's a running back. Yes, I might be out of my damn mind. Yes, I'm a Chiefs fan, but Isaiah Pacheco looks like the real deal. The man looks like he can run, and he's probably almost as fast as Tyreek Hill, without the added factor that Tyreek Hill is pretty much running everywhere at any time, no matter what the situation was. He could have done the jet sweep or just a normal little short pass from Mahomes to him, and would have ran just anywhere at any time. Isaiah Pacheco is kind of like that, but he still has time to learn the routes and figuring out where to go and the speed of the game. And I think he's a silent but deadly weapon for the Kansas City Chiefs.
I went with a receiver that could benefit from Patrick Mahomes throwing him the football. And I took Sky Moore of that offense as well. I mean, granted that the Chiefs had enough options that I could have went the other way and gotten Trent McDuffie. But I've also picked defense a couple of other places here. So I'm like, I need an offensive player. And these offensive players, especially receivers now in this passing league, are going to be impactful no matter what year they're in. Rookie be like rookie, you could care less because Jamar Chase did it. Terry McLaurin made an impact as a rookie. There's rookies all over the NFL that have made impact at the wide receiver position. And I think Sky Moore could be no different. And our put up or shut up, we took the same thing but two different angles, two different degrees of view at it.
All right, so this is from a Kansas City Chiefs fan's perspective. So the Raiders, they're all talk, and most of the time they do stuff or they try to do stuff, and they either fail or fail horribly. My definition of fail for the Raiders is they look like they're going to overtake us, and then I see a damn headline every year about how the Oakland or Las Vegas or whatever you want to call them, the Raiders, they somehow implode some way. They find a way to screw up what they've already tried to undo, and I don't see a stop to that. And the fact that Derek Carr uh, and the Raiders offense has been terrible for like ever since, I couldn't tell you how long. The Raiders are just trash, and when it comes to adding another wide receiver to that trash offense, maybe just maybe you bring life to it a little bit, but Derek Carr is kind of like looking at a getting like a Toyota Prius versus getting something more viable and more and just better, like a Toyota Camry or something like that. Like, yeah, a Prius is like very efficient for the environment and whatever, but that thing's gonna be slow as hell. But if you're like a Chiefs fan, you know speed, and you know that no matter who you have for speed, you have Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore, Isaiah Pacheco, which I've already mentioned. But nonetheless, I think the Raiders offense needs to shut the hell up because their offense has always stunk. Their defense has probably done more damage to us than their offense has ever done. Sorry, not sorry, Raiders Nation.
Here's where I am at. You took a little more of like this time to focus more on the rivalry side of it because Chiefs Raiders, I don't blame you. I went and I narrowed it down. And I am putting this more so on Derek Carr. And hear me out. Here's why. You've had so much go on in terms of, oh, where is Derek Carr going to end up? Derek Carr, all these trade talk, like all these potential rumors. This rumor mill after rumor mill after rumor mill. Where does it end? And where does it go? And here is where I ended up. This is a put up or shut up year for Derek Carr.
Definitely.
Because if Derek Carr does not follow through with everything that he intends for this offense, especially with having former college teammate Devontae Adams with him, I think Carr could be really legitimately getting the boot from Vegas.
Or maybe getting a
And
DUI like his buddy Henry Ruggs, but hopefully he doesn't go to prison for the rest of his life.
what another ill-placed joke, Ruckus.
I mean, I'm not on the email list with John Gruden, so it is what it is.
It was like that. I I I can't condone that. Like I even can't condone that joke because that because I'm like this is more so like Derek Carr. This is really a year where it's like get it done. It's almost like get it done or get out.
He hasn't really
And
gotten it done though, so that's why I'm being a douchebag about it. I'm also a Chiefs fan, so sorry not sorry.
yeah, I'm like this is like I'm talking about a player in legitimate crossroads here.
Right,
So
I don't blame you.
this is a moment in his career. And I see this more so from just kind of like a outsider perspective, just simply because we went through my team and I really didn't bash Dallas that much. Except that I know that the Dallas Cowboys are an accident waiting to happen. Thank you, Stephen A. But with all that aside, who are we seeing break out?
Honestly, I feel like this is kind of like a cop out, but at the same time in a good way. Nick Bolton, the linebacker of the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, I'm a Chiefs fan, and yes, I just kind of took a big dump on the Raiders, but Nick Bolton, the man can tackle, and he showed that last season as a rookie from the Missouri Tigers. Man can tackle, and the guy knows his stuff, even though whenever he talks, he's like very like headstrong. The man is he just seems like a very uh gentleman-like character and just gets the job done while also doing that.
I will say my breakout player that I took Javonte Williams of the Broncos. And I think that this is going to be a big year for him. I mean, granted that Melvin Gordon's in that backfield. We know this. But Javonte Williams, I think, is a sophomore running back that can make a lot of noise here.
He made a lot of noise like later on in the season too, which
Yeah,
really boggled my mind. But man, the dude can run.
yeah, that's the thing. I think that the biggest thing that's going to have to come about is that he'll have to pick up where he left off. And this is the season for him to do it. And the winner, we both chose it. I was like, I almost didn't, but I did not think that the Chargers were that complete enough
Dude,
to.
Khalil Mack. This is coming from a Chiefs fan. Yes, I've already talked crap on the Raiders, but I'm gonna talk a little bit of smack on the Chargers really quick. Khalil Mack isn't the same Khalil Mack that he was years ago with the Raiders going into the Bears system.
But
This man is
that's
like a
almost like
shell of
a
himself.
duh.
So I don't see. That's why I was also kind of like, well, the Chargers, yeah, they have J.C. Jackson and all these other guys, but I don't. I feel like they're gonna be about the same as they were, but they have more solidified or um, they have more hardened steel picks, whereas now they have Mike Williams. You know he's gonna be there for a while. Your safety is gonna be there for a while. Keenan Allen's gonna be there. Austin Eckler. You have weapons. It's just a matter of how you use them and how you use them properly. When
Herbert.
it right. I was including Herbert in that. I was thinking of Herbert as like the guy that like is in the headquarters trying to make sure everyone is on the same page. Kind of like how
Yeah,
Mahomes is like with the 13 seconds thing with the Bills. Like just in key moments just making sure that you don't like go too quickly and then give the other team another chance to go down the field and score and then beat you late in games. Just like understanding that. But yes, um, we already went over the winner for the AFC West, correct? I just
Yeah, we
wanted.
just took the Chiefs, and I basically said right away potential for playoffs. It's basically open competition.
Oh yeah, this is like the blockbuster division in the AFC because the Chiefs they have their pass rushers in Frank Clark, Furious George Karlaftis, Chris Jones, you name it. Then on the Broncos side, you have was it Alex Gregory? I know his last name was Gregory.
I'm
It
not
was
too sure on
it
that
was
one.
Gregory and Chubb, and then for the Chargers you have Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, and um yeah, I think it was Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, and then for the Raiders you have Chandler Jones and Max Crosby.
Yeah, pass
So
rushes are going to be prominent there in that
it's gonna
division.
be loaded. But yeah, anyways, what are you thinking
Yep.
now?
And now we go into setting the lineup because we've wrapped up kind of the basics of our NFL preview. But do you have a potential Super Bowl, like a potential preseason Super Bowl kind of look, or kind of like a team that you're looking to see maybe as like an early preseason Super Bowl favorite? I know you're obviously going to be putting your Chiefs there.
Um, I feel obviously it's early, and I really don't. I'm just gonna say right now I don't really have one because I'm not gonna try to pretend like I'm a analyst for any of these like networks and
Yeah,
say something that haunts me later or I think will haunt me later. I just don't care.
right. Yeah, I I think it's a little early to tell, but I think there's definitely Super Bowl hopefuls in the whole bunch. But with that said, we now go into setting the lineup. Setting the lineup is our segment where Ruckus and I have either a start bench cut scenario, or say like a would we rather segment, or this week is completely different. Kind of runs along, kind of can run alongside our war room, sort of. Any suggestions for this segment, you can mention them to us in the comment section on YouTube. This week is a rankum, and I posed the question last week, but Ruckus said, "Yeah, let's wait a week on this." What are the 10 best nicknames, regardless of sport? No particular order, but we put a condition on each other. Once a player was picked, the other person could not take him. So why don't we go with some ones that we did not draft first, that maybe I could have been kicking myself, or even Ruckus had had some fun with it. I I was kicking around the idea with Jason Kipnis's nickname, a dirtbag, or Ben Jarvis Green Ellis in the law firm. Um, the round mounder rebound, Charles Barkley. Any of the nicknames that could have been done for Shaq. Megatron, we both completely missed Megatron.
I just didn't want to use it as like a cop out. I was just kind of like, okay, that's like one of those cliche ones. I wanted to
This
like,
is Yeah, you wanted like some fun ones in there.
right.
But there was one that you didn't take that I ended up rejecting simply because it really wasn't legitimately a nickname. However,
Well, here's
it
the
had a
thing.
story to it.
All right, so circa late in the season for the Kansas City Chiefs, your boy Willie Gay, he gets into a scuffle with his, I believe it was his girlfriend or baby mama or whatever. Um, it turns out that a domestic dispute erupts and no one in the house gets hurt, but an object gets hurt, and that object was a vacuum cleaner. But here's the thing. I feel like this suits him more than what it does for his nickname that he gives himself, which is the Juice. But Willie Gay, I have him as, and this isn't really official, but I just think it's kind of hilarious. I have Willie Gay Jr.'s nickname as the Dustbuster because he took out a vacuum cleaner while being in a rage with his baby mama slash girlfriend at the time. And yes, he pled guilty and had to spend. He had it was like a fine of like $1,000 or something like that. I don't know how much that vacuum cost, but I think she got her money's worth on that. But every time now, I just think of the Dustbuster thing, which is better than better than someone like a fan thinking, oh, someone just like domestically assaulted someone. Like that's happened before and like with other players, but like you don't want to think of your player that you had as like someone that was like assaulted like another person, no matter what sex they are, man or woman.
No, just the dispute here involved him breaking a vacuum cleaner.
Yep, he's the Dustbuster in my opinion, not the Juice. I feel like it's better to be called the Dustbuster than the Juice. Sorry, OJ.
All right, so let's go with the ones that now that we kind of got past the ones that we didn't. And of course, when I said any nickname for Shaq, was that involved the Diesel, the Big Aristotle,
By the
the
way, shout out to Spinnis for letting me use the Dustbuster. I appreciate you, even though I kind of roasted the Raiders earlier, but it is what it is. Anyways, let's get
yeah,
in.
I knew that I was gonna put something in there of like, oh, we didn't draft it, we didn't draft this thing because I'm like, yeah, this one doesn't necessarily fit in like the actual drafting portion of it, but I'm like, we could just use this for something.
All right, what's your first one, Mr. Spinnis?
I took I took Fred McGriff with the Crime Dog.
All right, so my first pick was a man that is about to become a legend in the Kansas City Chiefs power rush, or yeah, defensive end George Karlaftis. But his new nickname that just got crowned to him was Furious George. It was the Greek Freak, but we changed it to Furious George because that just sounds furious, man. Anyways,
Greek
Spinus.
Freak also kind of went like kind of we didn't draft that anyway because that would have been Giannis Antetokounmpo. If you're kind of going with that way, so I think that
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
change
yeah.
kind of fits him a little better. I went with Tim Duncan and his nickname of the Big Fundamental. And for me, this is like Duncan was known for being one of the most fundamentally sound power forwards. It kind of worked well with the Greg Popovich system. So yeah, people started calling him the Big Fundamental, and it worked.
Yep. And speaking of things that worked, this man was a Boston Red Sox for his entire career and helped them in many iconic ways, even hitting a grand slam to force a game 7 of the ALCS, I believe, or ALDS.
I think it was you're talking 2013.
I thought it was 2000. I thought it was like in the 2004 era, but
I know there
2013
was
sounds right.
I know there was a 2013 one against the Tigers that he hit a big home run in. But
Yeah,
I
that's
think
what I'm
also
thinking of.
I think there was like multiple. I mean, there were multiple moments where Big Poppy was hitting big home runs.
And speaking of Ed Poppy, that's who I picked for the nickname of David Ortiz, Big Poppy.
Yeah,
Also, kind of reminds me of the Big Papa song from
yeah,
Notorious Big,
yeah.
Biggie
Yeah.
Biggie
It I
Smalls.
think they even have done commercials kind of like themed around some of that.
All right, go ahead.
I though you would mostly hear of this as a name for him, it actually is technically a nickname. Irvin Magic Johnson is where I was going with that.
Have you seen the new
As
show on HBO for that? It's pretty good.
I did watch some of that. It there it was more of a mockumentary rather than a actual like legitimate thing.
I watched the whole thing and I liked it, but yeah, I can see why you only watched a little bit of it.
Yep. So where are you going with your next one, Ruckus?
Alright, I'm going into the Negro Leagues back in the day with James Cool Papa Bell.
Oh, I was like, wait, did you skip one somewhere in there?
No, 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 no.
Well, I mean, kind of how we've kind of scrolled along. I think the second one you took was you've got another one somewhere in there that you accidentally skipped along the line, but we'll we'll keep going. Or at least from the ones I wrote down.
You're fine, you're fine. It's all good,
Yeah.
homie.
But I also went in the same direction just to kind of match one of yours there, but I took Leroy Satchel Page.
Were you thinking of uh
Yeah, you skip Reggie Jackson.
I thought I talked about Mr. October at the beginning.
No, you didn't. You went right into Big Poppy after I took Tim Duncan.
That's fine.
but
Alright.
but you could work your way around. You took you took Mr. October, and you can go right into Mr. October at this point.
Alright, so the man, the myth, the legend, Reggie Jackson, was one of my other nicknamed players, Mr. October. He has been in other movies, other sports movies I have watched, like Basketball and the movie The Benchwarmers, where he plays a man that's trying to teach the fundamentals to a bunch of old guys.
Yeah, I'm not surprised you kind of went that way. I went. I know I'm a Commanders guy. I know Ruckus is a Chiefs guy. This player I had played for division rivals for both of our teams. Former Eagle, former Bronco. I went with Brian Dawkins and his nickname of Weapon X. As this dude was a hard hitting free safety that you did not want to get hit by that guy, as he would hit you like a freight train, make you fold like a lawn chair, and is a Hall of Famer at that. So I went with Weapon X. What's your next one there, Ruckus?
All right, so this is I first heard about this man from my father-in-law. Shout out my father-in-law. When I was at a lake trip in the Lake of the Ozarks, they had a couple of posters of this St. Louis Cardinals legend, and his nickname is in the middle of this, Stan the Man Musial. I
Yeah.
thought it was very iconic because that's where I first heard about him, and I have him on LB the Show, which I haven't really played that, but that's here nor there. Stan the Man Musial. I thought that was a very classy and clever nickname.
Oh my. This next one I had a very interesting background because this nickname was the only one out of this entire thing that was technically a self-proclaimed nickname. He used it in the XFL, and it helped him get into the NFL. I am going with Rod Smart and his nickname of He Hate Me. Yes, this actually is legitimately a thing.
Honestly, ain't mad. Um, My next nickname that I found, which he was also a rival of the AL Central, the Chicago White Sox first baseman, overall 99 as a Silver Slugger and MLB The Show, the Big Hurt Frank Thomas, which is also a proud owner of the Field of Dreams, just land in general.
Yeah. And I believe he's also done a pretty good job with the baseball analysis as part of, I think, Fox.
Yes, 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 Fox Sports.
I think he's with Fox, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're on the money.
Yep. And then the next one that I had, granted, banned from baseball for gambling, but I am going with the switch hitter, who is the all-time leader in hits. Going with Pete Rose and his nickname of Charlie Hustle. What's your next one, Ruckus?
Speaking of which, this
Yeah,
man
pretty
was
much another.
a wasn't Shoeless Joe Jackson also like banned
Think
because
he also had like a major thing, yeah,
with the White Sox?
yeah, because I think that was because you're also going along the lines of this was also from Eight Man Out as
That's what
well.
I was thinking of when because I recently watched that and I was like, wait a minute, didn't he do the same stuff? But yeah, I had my his nickname was Shoeless Joe Jackson and he was pretty damn good, but also in as far as the adaptation in the movie, it sounded like he didn't know what he was really getting into, but he just wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah. All right, my next one was given because of his faith, and I'm going with the late Reggie White and his nickname of the Minister of Defense. I Reggie White also was an Eagle, but I more so kind of grew up with him knowing him as a Packer. But the nickname definitely sticks out, and of course that Christian faith of his really made that nickname such a prominent thing.
Speaking of Eagles, this man, the myth, the legend, that is still going on. This man is not actually an eagle, but
His
he
brother is,
his uh he still rides high in the clouds above us. And this man plays for the Kansas City Chiefs as a tight end. And you probably already guessed it. This man, the myth, they call him Zeus. Travis Kelsey, the tight end of the Kansas City Chiefs.
and you caught why I said it was like, yeah, you were talking about he was like, this guy's not an Eagle. I said, but his brother is.
Yeah, his brother Jason Kelsey is a
Jason
year.
Kelsey. Yeah.
I think his brother's a year older. His
Yeah, I think Jason is the older brother. Yeah.
right. I just didn't know if it was like a year or two, but they both went to Cincinnati, Ohio, for their colleges respectively. And Travis Kelsey is a tight end, whereas Jason Kelsey is a center according to Madden. I don't know if he's like a left tackle or right tackle. I'm
No,
pretty
he's
sure
actually a center. He's
okay.
actually a center.
That's what I thought. According to Madden, it showed that he was a center. But yeah, Zeus is the nickname for Travis Kelsey because he is a freaking god.
or at least built like the Greek god himself.
Hell yeah.
My next one I am going with, and I would be completely amiss if I did not put a nickname for one of the best basketball players of all time. His Airness, Michael Jordan.
All right, my second but not last pick of the nickname draft, the Chiefs select the human joystick, Dante Hall. as that pick. At least Ruckus does. The human joystick.
Yep. My next pick I had is that I have William the Refrigerator Perry, and basically, I am sending in the fridge.
I couldn't
I'm gonna.
imagine getting freaking like crampled by the like a fridge. Just like the amount of like weight that a fridge has. Like I feel like I would die. Like I would just be like squished, and then you would just see me in like a cartoonish like slim form, just crushed.
But but that's exactly what they did. I mean, that's exactly what they did in basically putting that up there.
Speaking of people being crushed, the my last guy, best for last, nickname ever. I looked up to this guy from the NBA Street video games. I believe he was in either the first NBA Street or the second game where it was like one of the last players that you could
It was.
unlock.
Oh, that was definitely Volume 2.
That's what I'm thinking. Um, this man, the myth, the legend, won a few dunk competitions as well, and is known for his very uh, swanky style of playing basketball and having a very stylish afro, Dr. J. Julius Irving, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep. And my last pick, because it turned out that I had only put down 9. But my final pick, I am going into basketball as well. Rest easy, Kobe. I'm going with the Black Mamba.
Rest in peace. Also, a couple seconds moment of silence for the man, the myth, the legend, Kobe Bryant. All right,
Yep.
Spanish. What do we want to
All
do
right.
now?
So, as we slide into a little bit of the simulation here, NBA 2K releases this Friday. I will be picking it up. Jordan challenges are a thing. My team with no contracts. I am looking forward to having a little bit of time behind this thing, but we've got a couple of other major segments along the way here. We now start. We now pretty much will divulge into our fantasy football segments. I granted said I keep saying that so much of this is going to have a corner, but I really think that we'll need to find a new name for this segment at some point.
We'll
But
figure
it
it
was
out.
draft time. It was draft time for Ruckus and I this past week in fantasy football. And Ruckus, you are competing in a much bigger league than I am.
Yeah, it's a 14 team league. I don't know if it's going to expand a little bit because there were some people at work that didn't get into it, but I just don't know off the top of my head
Yeah,
if they're
I don't
going
think you're
to.
really gonna. I think you're locked in at 14 now that the season is starting. But probably the next year, if they're still around, you'll probably see some owners shuffle.
But yeah, we'll see. All right, are you ready for me to talk about my
Yep,
notable mentions?
yep.
All right. So in round one, I got super lucky and picked Travis Kelsey for my tight end. And then as far as other players to mention, I had Devin Singletary as my running back. He's my starting one because, in my opinion, I figured he would be very good as far as the main running back for the Buffalo Bills. He's not rated very high, but I think he'll do alright. My top wide receiver is Scary Terry McLaurin. And then I have in my league, I have flex guys, so it could be a wide receiver, a running back, or a tight end. So one of those slots has Travis Kelsey. One of the other slots has Rashad Penny, the running back from the Seattle Seahawks, and then a wide receiver out of Green Bay named Alan Lazard. And then my
Who I think
quarterback,
just got hurt.
yeah, and I'm kind of tempted whether or not I want to switch him out for like Sky Moore or somebody, but my quarterback is Josh Allen. I kind of missed out on Pat Mahomes because he was, or Patrick, I should say, so that his mom doesn't get mad at me. Um, he was picked like a pick or two after I picked Kelsey, so I was a little salty about that, but I figured that was gonna happen. Um, and then my quarterback situation, I just have Josh Allen. I don't have anybody else on the bench for a quarterback because I figured it wasn't really warranted unless maybe Josh Allen gets injured. But this man is a freaking tank. But anyways, my bench includes DeAndre Hopkins. Yes, he's suspended for 6 games, but it's a good reason to have him on the bench. And then my second bench player is Sky Moore. My third bench is a tight end, who is Austin Hooper. And then I have a bench running back in Jamal Williams.
Yep. All right. So for me, I had a very, very interesting draft. I am in an 8-team league that is non-point per reception. So I at round 1 was torn between either going with Derrick Henry or Austin Eckler. Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, or Dalvin Cook. I passed on Christian McCaffrey to take Derrick Henry at number 2 overall. I then come back around after Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, and Josh Allen all come off the board. Josh Allen and Travis Kelsey all come off the board. Come back to me at 15, and I get Stephon Diggs, who I thought was going to come off the board before I had a chance at it. Patrick Mahomes comes back. I get Mark Andrews. Swings back around. I get Michael Pittman. And then I get Terry McLaurin to round out my first 5. After kind of shoring up a little bit more with my receiving core, with Mike Williams, then getting ETN and AJ Dillon, I then in round 9 scoop up Russell Wilson, the quarterback picked right before I got to Russell Wilson, though I probably would have been undaunted and took Russell Wilson anyway, was Kyler Murray. Swings back around. I get sniped off of, I get taken away from Damian Pierce, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, J.K. Dobbins. Well, J.K. Dobbins I wouldn't have gone for. But Dawson Knox would have been one I was looking at. Get Edmonds in round 10 to swing back and get Matthew Stafford as a second quarterback at 11 in my 11th round pick. So I'm like, okay, I could use a receiver, grab Adam Thielen. Then I have the Niners defense. And then I was running out of tight end options late. So I grabbed David Njoku, who's kind of one of my normal like late round grabs anymore. Then grab Kareem Hunt in 15, and then my kicker, I have the specs, Rodrigo Blankenship. And I know to respect the specs. So this is going to be a very interesting fantasy football season. My opponent initially did not grab a kicker in the draft, but then had a little bit of time, so he picked up Matt Prater. So now it's a little bit more of an interesting game, but I have a lot of interesting options for my week 1, lineup, which is a big plus. I'll start looking a little bit more into some research on that. Probably move Stephon Diggs out of my flex if he's there, which he isn't. maybe try and see where some of my interesting other decisions along the way will kick in. And I think I could have a decent year.
I think so too.
Yep. And with the prognosticators and with our prognostication segment, last week Ruckus, other than picking Georgia, kind of had the wheels fall off.
I don't know
Notre
shit
Dame
about
lost.
college, so
Notre Dame lost. It was like Notre Dame lost. And the LSU one was heartbreaking. So I could see why you'd have a little bit more of a, like, you weren't feeling that one too much. And with Ruckus, I think with kind of talking about the games that we had on Monday, I think we're going to keep them all. I think we're going to keep them all because just so we have enough games to actually work with. Because I took no college games this week. So, Ruckus, the first one that we are going to have for you here is tomorrow night's the Bills and the Rams. It is being played at SoFi Stadium.
I have a good feeling that the Bills will make it tough. And yes, the Rams are the reigning Super Bowl champs, but they're without Von Miller now since he went to the Bills. I have a good feeling that the Bills take the first game of this season against the Rams.
I am actually going to take the Rams here because this game is being played at home. It's a home game for the Rams. They're the defending champs. There's going to be a lot to be heralded about. I think the Rams are going to come away with this one in a very, very tight game.
Had the Bills even played the Chargers at SoFi?
I don't know if they played the Chargers at SoFi.
Because I just had that thought now, but I just didn't know if like the stats really mattered for that. But the now's now.
Yep. But the other game at SoFi this weekend, Raiders Chargers. Who you got?
Chargers.
Yeah, I too am also going to take the Chargers at home.
Because they had to put up or shut up against the Chargers.
Buccaneers Cowboys on Sunday night.
I have a feeling Tom Brady is gonna have a rough time against the Cowboys, so I'm saying the Cowboys.
I think that this is going to be a little more I think there's going to be a little bit more normalcy with this. I think I don't think that Tom Brady's going to have a hard time at all, even with this game being at Jerry World. I'm taking the Bucks, and I'm sure we know exactly what's going to go on with this next one here. Chiefs Cardinals. We're both taking the Chiefs.
How about a Kansas City Chiefs first win?
Yeah. And now the fun begins. The Cleveland Browns, who will likely be playing with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, against the Carolina Panthers. Baker Mayfield.
I think the Panthers are gonna have Baker Mayfield bake a huge crap onto the Browns.
I'm going to
That's probably the
say
most
that
tame version of that, based off of what Baker said about the whole
I'm going to say
situation.
that I'm going to say that I mean, I definitely think that the Browns are the better team, and I somehow think that Matt Rule is going to coach his way out of that one, like coach his way out of a win to that one. I am going to take the Browns. Broncos Seahawks.
I'm gonna go with the Broncos because let's ride.
I think that the lack of a quarterback is going to be the biggest thing that will hurt the Seahawks.
Yeah, especially if Geno Smith's your starting QB.
Yeah. Just make sure he doesn't get punched out.
Got him. All right.
Steelers Bengals.
Bengals, Joe Burrow, Joe Cool is gonna beat up on the Steelers.
Yeah, this is going to be a rough start. And then Vikings Packers.
I had the Packers because they have more stability versus the Vikings.
I think this one's also being played at Lambeau. So I am going to take the Pack here. And now we get into the best and the worst of the week. In our weekly stud and dud. Ruckus, take it away.
All right, so my weekly stud is a Hall of Fame NBA player by the name of Charles Barkley, also known for the really corny commercials for Capital One when he talks to uh
Samuel L. Jackson
yeah,
and
Samuel Jackson and his other homies. This time, he decides to be a prankster on Family Feud and answer a question that some people would say is a little controversial, but it is Twitter, or after all. The question was, if your fly was stuck open, what would you do to hide it? And Charles Barkley said he would put a little child uh over the open fly as a distraction so that people wouldn't notice that his fly was open. And the whole time, the media outlets and everything was going, "Oh my God, you horrible man! How could you?" But that's the controversial part. I thought it was funny that he just sat there and was like, "Man, I don't know what's going on here, but that's just my answer." And they took
yeah.
it to a whole nother thing. And
I
then,
mean,
go ahead.
the biggest thing was that it was up there, but just written differently.
Right.
Yeah,
And
it
then,
would be it'd be kind of the same concept as hiding behind a person.
right.
It just was written a lot more tastefully on the board.
Yeah. My honorable mention for my stud has to go from the man that I used to listen to whenever I would take breaks from work and or have my lunch break. I would listen to this man, the myth, the legend. His show is called PMS for short, but could be taken in a wrong way. But if you understand it, it is the Pat McAfee show. And this man, the myth, the legend, is becoming a full-time member of the College Game Day crew as a as far as the contracts go with ESPN. Pat McAfee has become the full-time member of the College Game Day crew. Woo! I think
Man,
that brings a lot of excitement to the College Game Day stuff that goes on. Go ahead.
and this is all the while he was doing WWE. He was doing his own podcast with the Pat McAfee show. So he's kind of really made a name for himself. But he was also a former NFL. And what's interesting, this is all coming from a person who was a special teamer.
Yeah,
And
he was a punter.
he was kicker and punter at West Virginia. Punted in the NFL. Has done some WWE work. All to get to this point. The only major thing that he didn't do before doing all this was be an employee at Barstool. Simple as that.
Yeah.
He kind of just took like a little bit more of like a Renaissance man entertainment approach, and the only thing he really didn't do was become an employee for Barstool Sports. But what was your dud for this week there, Stud? Or for Ruckus?
Aw, I'm a stud. Anyways, my my dud for this week was the amount of people that are on the injury report for the Miami Dolphins.
This is
And
just a Wednesday report, so this is you're kind of not going to see probably as many of them in for like the actual weekend report that actually should get submitted.
but it was notable because one of them wasn't even injury related, but I also just saw that as like a sore thumb kind of thing for the Dolphins because I didn't notice a whole lot of other teams having a lot of people on the injury report. Usually you see that like midway through the season, but yeah. The Dolphins week 1 injury report that was very early, I thought was a dud compared to other
Yeah.
things that were going on.
I'm going to say the one that I'm going to go backwards this week. And my dud was Gilbert Celestino for nearly hitting Gary Sanchez in the face on a practice swing.
Yeah, that was pretty scary to look at.
That was a very very scary situation. However, this is the reason why I went backwards. My stud this week actually does not come from any of our major sports. It actually comes from the US Open in New York. And it goes to a American tennis player by the name of Francis Tiafoe, who defeated Rafael Nadal at the US Open and eventually defeated one more opponent to reach the US Open semifinal. He is the first American to do so since 2006. So that as a whole is a major, really just a major significance thing is tennis has been primarily dominated by the international game, and Americans have not been as relevant. And there you have it. Francis Tiafoe, it could be a face that may bring American tennis on the men's side, especially, back into relevance. I mean, the women's tennis, clearly we had that with Serena Williams and her retirement. But this guy could be the potential of American men's tennis. Who knows? And with that said, we close out this episode of the Ruckus and the Menace podcast.
All right,
We thank we
go
thank
ahead.
you for listening and have a good one.
All right, this has been a Ruckus in the Mud, Ruckus in the Menace podcast. I am Ruckus.
I'm spent as the menace.
Have a good night or day or whenever you're listening to this. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a like. Also, leave a comment on whatever we talked about in this podcast, whether it's good or bad. We don't care. We'll probably talk about it later on. But anyways, have a good day, night. Have a good time. See you later.
Deuces.